Floor 6, which seemed to be just one big room, as far as I could tell, had nearly one entire wall covered with a fish tank. And looking closer, I saw saltwater species. Not cheap by any means. A big screen television was mounted on the opposite wall, surrounded by several couches, on one of which sat 4 people. Reruns of Gilligan's Island played on the TV, but they just sat there, facing the television, shoulder to shoulder, not moving or laughing. I moved around to see their faces. My jaw dropped as I saw they were young, all of them. I thought the Haven of Peace had only old people, but the 2 boys and 2 girls sitting there were my age, or even younger, and dressed alike in long-sleeved white t-shirts and red sweatpants with white stripes. I needn't have worried about the argument bothering them. They weren't reacting to the television at all. In fact, they seemed catatonic. I waved my hand in front of the boy nearest to me, and he didn't even flinch. Then my eyes rested on the girl next to him, and I froze. Her hair was platinum blonde, cut short, so short as to seem almost a mistake. Huge brown eyes filled her face and were such a contrast to the lightness of her hair that she appeared almost unreal, like she was simply someone's portrait. Her skin nearly glowed. I started to feel lightheaded and realized I'd been holding my breath. I let it out in a rush as I continued to stare at the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. Some of my friends were girls, but other than a forced pairing with Lucy Pearson when we got voted freshman reps for the homecoming court, I hadn't dated much. Meaning, not at all. As I'd done with the boy, I waved a hand in front of her face. Nothing. I squatted before her, my eyes staring at the top of her head and running down the length of her. Despite just sitting there, doing nothing, she looked really in shape. Actually, really hot, as Jack would say. On her feet were white flip-flops, and her toenails were painted pink. I did that. Mom's voice startled me, and I stood up. What? Mom pointed. Her toes, I painted them. I asked, who are they? What's wrong with them? Mom held up a clipboard and a blood pressure cuff. Brain injuries. I looked back at them. Do they ever do anything? Mom shook her head. This is all I've ever seen them do. Brain dead teenage guinea pigs, I thought. And I thought my life sucked. Mom said, get that clipboard and write down what I tell you. Why didn't you ever tell me this is what you do and who you take care of? I asked. Why didn't you ever ask me who I take care of? She had me there, but it was a nursing home. Weren't nursing homes for old people? I just assumed. She smiled. The geezers are on the lower floors. I grinned. The phone rang, and she went to answer it. Then she turned back to me. Sweetie, I have to go up to floor 7 for a bit. Who's on that floor? Just offices. No patients. I only had about 20 minutes before I met Jack. Can you come back so we can talk about this? Mom sighed. Mason, please. I really want you to get rid of that uniform and go home. Can we just discuss this tomorrow? Now that I was actually getting somewhere and finding out what she'd been hiding from me, I really didn't want to put it off. I'm meeting Jack at 9. We're still going to the cabin. Oh, I pulled the keys to the Jeep out of my pocket and gave them to her. It's in the back of the parking lot. She tossed them once and caught them in her hand. Wait for me. I'll try to get back before you go. I glanced at the 4 on the couch. What about them? Mom shrugged. They're not going anywhere. She left. As I picked up my backpack, the case with the DVD of my father started to fall out. I grabbed for it, but missed as the back of my hand sent the thing flying. The case hit the side of the counter with a clunk and broke open. The DVD rolled out, coming to a stop underneath the couch. I went over to the couch and snapped my fingers in front of one of the boys, then waved my entire hand. Hello? He stared straight ahead at the television. Hey, ugly! His eyes didn't even waver. I faked a punch at his face. Nothing. On my hands and knees, I reached under the couch for the DVD and started to put it back in the case. My hands were shaking as my mind swam with the events of the day. The fight with my mom, finding the Trodyne ID in her safe, then being in a room with catatonic teenagers. It was too much. No wonder my hands were shaking. I needed something to draw me back. Like my father's voice. I checked the time, then slipped the DVD into the player. I grabbed the remote and sat on the floor with my back leaning against the couch nearest the blonde girl. I could smell whatever soap she'd last used or had been used on her. Immediately, I felt myself relax as the DVD started to play, and I hoped I would have time to watch the whole thing before my mom got back. My father got to my favorite part. I will be a crocus in a hidden garden. A soft but hoarse voice startled me. Where am I? I turned. The beautiful girl's brown eyes, unbelievably vibrant, unmistakably awake, locked with mine. I couldn't speak. If you become a crocus in a hidden garden, said his mother, I will be a gardener, and I will find you. My father was still reading. I hit the pause button. Crap. The girl's eyes dulled. Hello? I snapped my fingers in front of her face. Nothing. Then I turned the DVD back on and watched her. Still nothing. My father finished, and she was as catatonic as ever. I restarted the DVD and pressed play. If you become a mountain climber, said the little bunny, I will be a crocus in a hidden garden. Again, the girl spoke. Where am I? This time I got out a few words. Haven of peace. If you become a crocus in a hidden garden, said his mother, I will be a gardener, and I will find you. Again, she was gone. I swore, then went back to the same part. If you become a mountain climber, said the little bunny, I will be a crocus in a hidden garden. The girl's voice was becoming familiar and less hoarse. Where am I? This time I hit pause and knelt in front of her. Haven of peace. I held my breath. Please, please, please stay awake, beautiful girl. Well, this is just the start of a huge series of events that sends Mason's life spiraling into a situation that he never imagined he'd be in. The girl convinces him to take her away from Haven of Peace, and they find themselves on the run, not only from, as it turns out, the people at Trodyne, who have a lot to do with the situation at Haven of Peace with the 4 young teenagers, and from actually the 4 teenagers themselves. 3 teenagers themselves who find themselves coming after the girl, whose name it turns out to be Layla, and Mason. Mason wants to find a way to help this girl because for some reason, instantly, he loves her. But unfortunately, the tangles and the lies and the mystery behind who this girl really is and why she is the way she is so twisted that Mason doesn't know if he'll ever really be able to help her. If you want to read a story that's fast-paced, that keeps you guessing and wondering and makes you read until the very, very end, you need to read The Gardener. If you want to find out who this girl is, what Haven of Peace really does, what Trodyne has to do with it, and if Mason can save this girl, Layla, from what seems to be a pretty horrible fate, you need to read The Gardener. Read it. Tell me about it on the blog, and I will see you next week. Bye.